You are now listening to the History Lesson Podcast with your host, Ringside Robert.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the History Lesson Podcast, hosted by yours truly, Ringside Robert, on the Ringside Reporter Radio Network. Today, we're going over a classic. September 16th, 1981, Caesars Palace, Las Vegas, Nevada, Sugar Ray Leonard, Thomas the Hitman Hearns, although he wasn't introduced as a hitman back then. But I will always know Thomas Hearns as the hitman. We're going to be talking about that fight today. We're also going to talk about the Canelo Alvarez situation and his absolute ridiculous plan to get himself acclimated to 160 pounds. So those are a couple of things we're going to go over here today. So let's go into Sugar Ray Leonard, Thomas the Hitman Hearns. And one thing I've got to say, and I've reviewed a lot of fights from the 1970s, 1980s, 1990s, and of course in the 2000s, in the 21st century. And this is the only fight I know of where Tim Ryan and Gil Clancy, who did the call of the fight that I heard, actually had access to the judges' scorecards, and they were able to update people between rounds on what the judges were scoring. Now, I wish that more people would do that today. And, of course, it's the only fight I have ever reviewed, and I listened to it twice, because how I review my fights is through I put them up on the Ringside Robbie's Boxing Corner, so the people that call into my stuff can listen, because a lot of the people that I service are visually impaired, and a lot of them can't see the boxing matches because their eyes are as bad as mine are, or they can't see at all. And believe me, there's a lot of totally blind people who love boxing, who can't see at all, who can break down fights just as well as those of us who can see. And I'm lucky enough to be able to see well enough to actually watch fights. It would drive me crazy not being able to watch fights. But also having a vision impairment, I'm able to listen to something and break it down just like if I couldn't see. And so I listened to this twice, and I was amazed by that. And so I applaud, Tim Ryan and Gil Clancy for being able to do that. I thought that was fantastic, because it gives you an idea how the judges are scoring, and I think that's fantastic. I know that HBO has Harold Letterman, and he does a wonderful job, and you get his score after every round. They put it up on the screen, and every 3 rounds, Jim will go, well, okay, Harold, after 3, how do you have it? After 6, how do you have it? After 9, how do you have it? But these guys basically told you throughout the 14 rounds that this fight went, how the judges were scoring. And I thought that was fantastic. First of all, Sugar Ray Leonard started this fight off with a very bad fight plan. And if it would have only been a 12-round fight, he would have lost, because he gave away 4 of the first 5 rounds. Okay? He let rounds 1, 2, 4, and 5 go to Thomas Hearns. Round 3 was the only competitive round during the first 5 rounds of that fight. Round 6, 7, and 8, they all three of those belong to Sugar Ray Leonard. 9, 10, and 11. 9, 10, and 11 went by way of Hearns. Hearns took back over the fight. And after the 12th round is when Angelo Dundee came up with the famous line that everybody's heard: "Son, we have 9 minutes left, and you're blowing it. You're blowing it, son. You're blowing it." And, I knew he used that during that fight, but I couldn't remember when. And see, that's another thing. This was a matchup of two of the all-time greatest trainers in boxing history: Angelo Dundee and the great Emanuel Stewart. And boy, it was fun to being able to listen in between rounds to the corners. I mean, those are your all-time greatest trainers, and they both told their fighters exactly what they needed to tell them, and they did a wonderful job. You guys training today, your Freddie Roaches, your Robert Garcias, your Ken Porters, your Dan Birminghams, your people like that. You all need to take note of how Angelo Dundee and Emanuel Stewart trained their fighters. Maybe it would help you guys out. Okay? So after round 12, Dundee says, "You're blowing it, son. You got 9 minutes left." He goes out in the 13th round and puts Thomas Hearns through the ropes. And, of course, that was an official knockdown. After the first time pushing him through the ropes, of course, Davy Pearl, the referee back then, he didn't fall for that. But the second time Hearns went through the ropes, it was an official knockdown. And then he put so much pressure on Hearns in the 14th round, Davy Pearl had no choice but to stop the fight. And it was one of the classic boxing matches of all time. And I don't know how the rest of you feel, but I miss 15-round fights. I completely understand why it was done, because of the death of Buku Kim back in 1982. That's when boxing took a look at themselves, and eventually, I think it was after 1985 or 86, 15-round fights went away permanently. And I don't know, to me, that's just a horrible shame, because I honestly think today we would find out who the real men are in the sport of boxing if they actually had produced a top-notch product for 45 minutes. 45 minutes is a hell of a lot tougher than 36. And for somebody who's 51, going to be 52 years old in October, I miss those days. I grew up with 15-round fights. Hell, I grew up with non-title fights being both 10 and 12 rounds. And then your championship fights were always 15. I don't remember too many 4 and 6 and 8 round fights back when I was growing up. With a 15-round fight, you could really find out how seriously the fighter took the fight. You could find out what kind of condition he was in. You could find out what kind of training he used. And a man really had to step up and prove himself back in those days. And I truly miss the 45-minute classics. I really, really do. Sometimes these 36-minute jobs don't get things done. And for those of you that are calling Keith Thurman and Sean Porter the fight of the year, I want you to do me a favor to June 4th. Earlier this month, and I want you to rewatch Francisco Vargas, Orlando Salido, because until two people step up to the plate and put on that kind of fight, As far as I'm concerned, that is fight of the year. And I don't think any two boxers or punchers will be able to step up and produce for 36 minutes the way those two guys did. Sean Porter and Keith Thurman was a good fight, but it was not a great fight, and it was not fight of the year. And I do think that they will eventually have a rematch. I'd like to see it, but it doesn't need to be an immediate rematch. So for those of you on the internet talking about Porter and Thurman being fight of the year, go back and do your homework and watch June 4th from the StubHub Center in Carson, California. And then watch Thurman and Porter, and you tell me which one you think the fight of the year is. Because without question, I think Francisco Vargas, Orlando Salido is the hands-down fight of the year. And boxing has, from July until December to prove me otherwise. And that brings us to somebody who claimed after he fought Amir Khan that we don't fuck around in Mexico. Well, Oscar De La Hoya and Canelo Alvarez, you're currently fucking around in Mexico. Because what is your brilliant plan of getting yourself acclimated to 160 pounds? Your brilliant fucking plan is to, okay, I'm going to get myself acclimated to 160 by going after the 154 WBO title, currently held by UK fighter Liam Smith. That is just so fucking brilliant, Canelo. Oscar, you both need to come out and explain yourself. Do you realize if you win that title, you couldn't even unify it if you wanted to, because both of the Charlo brothers and Andazori Laura, who you've already fought, is on the Al Heyman side and Showtime side of things, and you've put your eggs in the Golden Boy HBO planet of boxing? As far as I'm concerned, Mr. Alvarez and Mr. De La Hoya, you are doing a duck job, even though you have so-called made a verbal agreement. You haven't put anything in writing that you're going to fight the scariest man on the planet next September. Why the hell can't you do it next May? Okay, you want 2 fights to get yourself acclimated to the middleweight division. Okay, you could have fought Curtis Stevens. You could have fought David Lemieux. You could have fought Terriano Johnson. But your brilliant idea is to fight Liam Smith, and you want a belt after you threw the WBC belt away and you just handed it to Golovkin? If you're a true Mexican warrior and you have Latino blood running through those veins of yours, you wouldn't have gave that title up. You would have made him earn it. And then, according to our good friend Steve Kim, and of course this is all rumor, folks, so don't get carried away. But according to our good friend Steve Kim, on his show that he recorded, that I participate in, the next round, rumor has that Oscar and Canelo is supposed to have another fight in December. Really? Which joker are you going to pull out of the stands to fight Canelo this time? I mean, come on. You want to get yourself acclimated to the weight. I get that. Okay. Well, you've got your promotion company, Oscar, promotes David Lemieux. If you can give David Lemieux, you can sacrifice David Lemieux to Triple G last October. You can sacrifice David Lemieux to your so-called Mexican warrior, Canelo Alvarez. Why can't David Lemieux be fighting Canelo Alvarez in September? I don't understand where the fuck Oscar is trying to lead Canelo in his career. And look, I don't firmly believe that Canelo is a coward, but Oscar De La Hoya is making him look that way. I mean, this whole thing just, frankly, pisses me off to no end. I understand that Canelo Alvarez is your cash cow, but Jesus Christ, if Canelo Alvarez is a real fighter, then put him in with a real middleweight. And oh, by the way, you've reserved the T-Mobile the T-Mobile Arena and possibly Texas Jerry World, Texas AT&T Stadium. Are you serious? Liam Smith is not going to help Canelo fill up that Texas Jerry's World. There's only one fighter on this planet that'll fill up all 100,000 seats in Cowboy Stadium. And that is one Gennady Gennadievich Golovkin. Oscar's son, you got some explaining to do, or you're back on doing substances and you're not thinking clearly. I don't know what the hell you're doing. I really don't know what the hell you're doing. I know Steve Kim has basically told fans that it's time to send De La Hoya a message. And I know I've talked about that before here on the show. And I guess that's the only thing I guess that's the only power we have as fans, is to do that. But I'm the kind of guy, I like to support boxing. I'm a junkie. I'm addicted. I need to go to boxing rehab. Okay, if there is such a thing. I don't blame Liam Smith. He's going to take the biggest payday he's ever going to get in his life. It's not his fault. I don't blame the UK fans. They're going to support their guy. But I don't know what planet Oscar De La Hoya, the so-called Golden Boy, is on. I tell you, with some of these pay-per-view decisions lately made by some of these promoters, you got to wonder. Terrence Crawford, Victor Postal, they're going to be on pay-per-view on July 23rd. Neither one of them has ever been on pay-per-view before. I feel bad for both of these guys. This is going to be a decent fight. It's a fight that needs to happen because it's a unification fight. But you're putting them on a stage that neither one of them has ever been. And then you're going to make you're going to have the Mexican superstar who's supposed to be the Mexicans of Mexicans fighting a British guy that not very many people, unless you're a hardcore boxing fan in the United States, know who Liam Smith is. That is not an appropriate way to sell a pay-per-view. Bob Arum with the Postal Crawford pay-per-view, and Oscar De La Hoya, and I don't know if it's Eddie Hearn or Frank Warren, whether these people don't care about making money anymore. I don't get it. I don't get it. The Postal Crawford thing should be on regular HBO. Okay? But I'm going to buy the Postal Crawford pay-per-view because it's a fight that needs to happen. It's a unification bout. But I've really got to wonder about what I'm going to do come September 17th. I don't understand the whole logic of, well, I've got to get acclimated to the weight. Well, why aren't you fighting Curtis Stevens? Why aren't you fighting David Lemieux? Why aren't you fighting Terriano Johnson? I mean, come on. Somebody needs to explain this to me. I don't get it. I can accept it if you're fighting somebody who is legitimately 160 pounds. I mean, you know what Gennady Golovkin's going to do while you're playing around with these 154-pound dudes? He's going to fight Chris Eubank Jr. He's going to end up fighting Billy Joe Saunders. You know, and I give credit to Chris Eubank Jr. for stepping up to the plate and saying, you know what, I want this fight. And the worst thing about it is it's going to happen in the UK, and it's going to make Saunders look bad. It's going to make Billy Joe Saunders look bad because Chris Eubank had the guts to step in with Gennady Golovkin. I don't get it. I don't get it, people. I really don't get it. I really, really, really don't get this. Somebody has to explain this to me. Oscar De La Hoya, if you're listening, call the Ringside Robbie's Boxing Corner, 773-572-7781. Contact me on Twitter at Ringside Robert. Give me a full-fledged explanation of what the fuck you're doing here. Okay? How are we boxing fans supposed to buy this snow job you're selling us? And once again, nothing against Liam Smith. If I'm offered more money than I've ever had in my life, I'm going to sign on the dotted line. I'm going to take the fight. But that's not how you get acclimated to 160 pounds. You fight David Lemieux. You fight Curtis Stevens. You fight Terriano Johnson. What the fuck are you thinking? Remember, we do the live show, Ringside Reporter podcast, on Sunday evenings between 7 and 9 Eastern Time. Call 323-870-3857 and throw your 2 cents in. Frankly, this week's boxing schedule, there's not a whole lot to be desired. But if you're hardcore, you're going to watch the Tuesday night fights on FS1. You're going to watch the Friday night Ring TV with Berto Duran and Doug Fisher and Steve Kim. You're going to watch the ESPN stuff on Saturday. You know? So, you got to live with what we get. Anyway, folks, that's my opinion on a few things. So if you want to debate with me, feel free and do so. I'd love to hear from you. Ringside Robert on Twitter, or call 773-572-7781, and we'll see what we can come up with next week for another great history lesson. And also, I'd like to know, do you miss the 15-round fights? Let me know, because I sure the hell do. And I know boxing will never go back to those, but I miss them. We could really find out who the men are, and we could really see if Canelo Alvarez is fucking around in Mexico if he had to go 45 minutes. Catch you later, everybody. We'll see you again next week. And your feedback is always appreciated. Goodbye, everybody.
There are places to shop, and then there are shopping destinations, like Simon Premium Outlets. Here, there's always something new to discover. New styles, new brands, and always amazing prices. Simon Premium Outlets. Exceptional brands up to 65% off.
At Merrimack Premium Outlets and Rentham Village Premium Outlets, discover the best of the season during our incredible July 4th clearance sale. Don't miss out on special offers on exceptional brands, already up to 65% off, July 1st through July 4th. Merrimack Premium Outlets and Rentham Village Premium Outlets. Simon Centers.
There are places to shop, and then there are shopping destinations like Simon Premium Outlets. Here, there's always something new to discover. New styles, new brands, and always amazing prices. Simon Premium Outlets. Exceptional brands up to 65% off.
At Merrimack Premium Outlets and Rentham Village Premium Outlets, discover the best of the season during our incredible July 4th clearance sale. Don't miss out on special offers on exceptional brands, already up to 65% off, July 1st through July 4th. Merrimack Premium Outlets and Rentham Village Premium Outlets. Simon Centers.